Hey guys, Brandon here, and in this video I want to talk about all-wheel drive versus the big battery in the Model 3. So a lot of Model 3 owners are sort of facing this decision because if you really want all-wheel drive, you have to wait until it's actually offered, which we don't know exactly when that is, but realistically it's probably at least 6 to 9 months. Versus the Model 3 that they're currently offering, which is basically a fully loaded large battery version. So there's two no-brainer situations about that. The first is if you live in an area with no snow or like once a year or something like that, where icy conditions and stuff like that really isn't a concern, then probably all-wheel drive isn't going to add much, and it's worth it to have the extra range with the bigger battery. So I would say in that situation, just go for the current one now. And then the other no-brainer situation is if you really want maximum power and handling, in other words, like the performance option, which isn't even available yet, but Musk has hinted that will be available sometime, then you definitely want to wait for the all-wheel drive. So let's assume that you're in an area that at least gets some sort of interesting weather in the winter. I'm in Michigan, so I'm familiar with icy and snowy roads, so I can talk about that from experience. So before we get to the winter stuff, the obvious decision factors are that the big battery is something that's available now, so if you really need to get your hands on it, whether for financial reasons or maybe your current car is dying and you need to replace it soon, just go for the current rear-wheel drive model. The tax credit issue was kind of up in limbo right now, but as far as we can tell, by all indications, the EV tax credit is still there. But for Tesla vehicles, because they sold so many, it's going to start the phase-out period probably sometime in early 2018. Nobody's quite sure when. In case you're not aware, once the phase-out starts, it doesn't go down to zero. Once Tesla hits 200,000 vehicles in the US, then they have a full quarter where there's no restrictions on the tax credit. That's 3 months. And then for the next 6 months after that, then the rebate or the credit is 50% of its original value. The original was 7,500, so half of that is like, what, 3,750, something like that. And then the 6 months after that, it goes down to 25%, and then after that, it's zero. So there's kind of a gradual swing down of it. So most early reservation owners are likely to get at least a partial credit on that. But anyway, all that to say, if that's an integral part of your purchase decision, then going up front now for the rear-wheel drive probably makes more sense. So, for me, the big issue is the winter-related stuff. So the only thing that holds your vehicle to the ground and enables it to stop is the rubber on your tires and the resistance that can be applied through those tires and gripping on the road. So the first obvious question is, do you really need all-wheel drive to be reasonably safe in a snowy area? Before I had my Model S, I had a front-wheel drive Volt. And then I sold that and I got the all-wheel drive Tesla Model S, so I can compare a little bit. And I had Blizzak snow tires on the Volt, and I was pretty satisfied with their function even in really slippery conditions. So all-wheel drive gives you an advantage regardless of your tires when you're accelerating because there's more wheels to actually grip. But all-wheel drive does very little, if anything, for braking. So it will help you go when it's slippery, but it's not going to help you stop when it's slippery. And stopping is fairly valuable. So I found that in the front-wheel drive Volt that having a good set of snow tires pretty much compensated for what I needed in terms of road safety and traction. So I was pretty happy with that. Now, of course, comparing that to an all-wheel drive vehicle with snow tires, that's the optimum performance in terms of traction, where you have all four wheels with really good tires and also that can power the vehicle. And there is actually a little bit of benefit in terms of stopping power because I have a motor in front and in back, both the front and rear wheels apply resistance during regenerative braking. So it's kind of like an all-wheel drive braking. But Getting back to the decision issue here, I would say that a two-wheel drive vehicle with snow tires is better than an all-wheel drive with either all-season tires or crappy tires, at least in places that have legit snowy or icy winters. So in terms of traction, I think that a rear-wheel drive Model 3 with really good snow tires like BlizzX, or that really long name that starts with N, Nika something. Anyway, and there's some other brands out there. I happen to have BlizzX and I'm pretty happy with them. But so a two-wheel drive vehicle with really good snow tires, you're going to be okay. Now there's another benefit actually to going with the bigger battery, especially if you're in cold areas. First of all, a bigger battery is actually able to deliver more power, regardless of whether it's to one motor or two motors, just by the fact that it's a bigger battery. So like a Tesla 100 kilowatt hour battery pack can output a higher max energy at full charge than say a 60 kilowatt hour. So aside from that, the rated range on the Model 3 with the bigger battery is, I don't know, in the neighborhood of low 300s, I forget, 320 or something like that, 325. In my experience, I lose about 30% of my range on average during the winter. So the value of having that extra battery power versus the value of the all-wheel drive, which may or may not help you in stopping power and can be compensated for on a rear-wheel drive with really good snow tires, I think it pretty much weighs in favor of the bigger battery. So in real world numbers, my 70D is rated at I think 240 miles. Realistically, I probably get about 220 in good conditions, you know, like 70 degrees, good road conditions and smooth sailing, all that kind of stuff. And then in the winter, I probably wouldn't try to get anywhere farther than like 170, 180 miles, unless the conditions were really good, where like the roads are really dry and we haven't had snow for a little while and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, 240 down to 80, that's just in my, you know, my internal processing, my intuition, I guess, that's a loss of 60 miles. Actually, even in my Model S right now, I think I could say I would rather have the 100 kilowatt hour battery and lose one of the motors. So I would trade one of my motors for a bigger battery, as long as I kept my snow tires and stuff like that, because it's just so much more convenient on trips. When you hit bad weather or something, I mean, you can still make it with a small battery, but you have to pinch your energy and save in little ways, and it's just so much easier if you have a big battery. So wrapping this all up, if you live in a cold state, I highly recommend opting for the bigger battery, which means that you could get your Model 3 now if you have your reservation. Well, I guess it means regardless, you can get your Model 3 sooner. Again, if you live in a sunny state, you know, in the south, southwest, southeast, wherever, where this really isn't a consideration, unless you're a handling and power nut, you know, rear-wheel drive is fine. And even in those areas, you're going to appreciate having the bigger battery and the greater range, because it means the less time you have to spend charging. So that's it. Any comments or questions about, you know, all this stuff, or my experience with the two-wheel drive Volt or the all-wheel drive Tesla Model S, snow tires, whatever, please leave me a comment or questions below. If you're looking for a Tesla Model S or Model X or a Tesla solar system, I'll leave my referral link in the description. Free unlimited supercharging is ending on January 31st for new vehicles, so take advantage of referral code if you would like for that. And I also have a couple videos where I compared my Acadia to the Tesla Model S in terms of like stopping and turning with snow tires, all at low speed stuff. It wasn't, you know, crazy destructive stuff like Bjorn's. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.